Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason. Happy Friday. Yeah, we made it through another week here in the Valley of the Sun. It's going to be raining, but going to clear up. Going to be nice for the weekend. The Phoenix Open's right around the corner. It's supposed to rain most of the week, so it'll be interesting to see the biggest party in golf, how the rain will affect it. But I'm sure it won't. You know, these guys, they don't care. You get enough alcohol at anybody, as long as it isn't thundering and lightning, right? It should be quite the spectacle. And, you know, we always try to help people here, right? I mean, that's what we do, right? You know, Jason and I, we like to warn you about things, make sure you get the whole story, especially financially. But, you know, something is bothering me because I don't know if you saw, you know, all of the craziness that's happening in the world and flights and everybody acted nuts. The latest, this 60-year-old woman dropping her pants in the aisle because they wouldn't let her use the bathroom while the plane was landing. You know, you kind of grew up, you know, back in the day. I don't know, you know, before you went on a big road trip, what did your parents always say? Hey, did you go to the bathroom? Because we're not stopping, right? You know, you're on a plane. You know, before you get on the plane, maybe a good idea to use the facilities, but especially, you know, who knows? Maybe this was her first time. Maybe she was a first timer, and she didn't know that. Hey, when you get ready to land, yeah, you're not getting out of your seat. But anyway, just to help people, because, you know, you don't want to be that person, right? You don't want to have to be that person yanking your pants down in the aisle of an airplane. Go to the bathroom before you get on your flight. So there you go, Jason. A little PSA from us to everybody out there, so you can avoid, you know, and everyone's got phones, right? You know people are going to record this. Who does that?
Oh, yeah. There was a movie I liked back in the 1990s. It was called Heathers. It was one of those dark, kind of almost comedic movies. Christian Slater played this cool kid in high school, and it's a little bit of a dark movie, but there's a point in the movie where they're questioning the stuff that he's doing during the movie, and he's like, well, the extreme leaves an impression. And then here we are 30 years later. I mean, I think she knew she was going to leave an impression, and I think that's why she did. It's like, look, you're going to force me not to use the restroom. I'm going to give you something to look at.
Yeah, well,
and that's where society is not polite anymore. Tell you.
Nobody wanted to see that, okay? Nobody wants to see that. Keep your dang pants on.
Maybe they're flying to San Francisco.
Right, well, in that case, probably would have been okay, right? You know. 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. The physical delivery of wealth insurance, gold and silver. That's what we do, not toilet humor. But, hey, it's Friday, so I figured I'd bust that one out. AllAmericanGold.com is the website. Listen, what a crazy, crazy day. This thing was setting up. We are going to have higher stock prices. I think we were going to have all-time record high prices because we had huge earnings out of Amazon and Meta. So Zuckerberg, Bezos, you know, because Google and Microsoft, not so much. But these two guys knocked it out of the park. Don't worry, all you people worried about climate change. Zuckerberg's going to be able to build about 10, 15, 20 more bunkers. All the beer and macadamia nuts, his cattle, you know, of course, listen, it's okay for the rich guys to have cattle. Not okay for everybody else. And I'm sure Bezos, I'm sure Dr. Evil, he's going to build a couple more yachts after this. But it was all about the jobs number and what a number. Listen, I don't know if it's true or not, okay? But maybe we're wrong. Maybe Joe Biden is the greatest president in the history of the planet 353,000 jobs created according to the government. Now, we had ADP on Wednesday. That was the private sector who said, hey, payrolls were up like 100,000. The government said, come on, 100,000. No, 353,000. Nobody was close. I want to say everyone was expecting like 150. That was kind of the average. I don't even know if anybody even had 200,000 jobs. But this thing was huge. But it got worse, which was wages. So wages had been falling in October, November, December. Still, though, it was average, 4%. Huge jump in wages in this government number, up 0.6%, climbing back up towards 4.6%. This is for all the rate cutters out there, and the inflation's over. This is the exact opposite. The unemployment rate stayed the same. Here's the funny part. The unemployment rate was actually going to go up, but they said that less people were looking, I'm drawing a blank now. The labor force participation rate actually fell. So this whole jobs number was a huge, and then hours worked fell. Now hours worked is below where we were before COVID ever started. And it's funny, maybe that's the new thing. I don't know, Jason. This whole report left everybody scratching their heads. The 10-year note, which was like 3.8, 405. Yeah, it's like a meme stock now, the 10-year note. Why not? Everything's wonderful. Joe Biden's the best. We'll be back. 800-951-0592. A quick look in at the markets. Yeah, you know what? Maybe what happened. Maybe what happened is the Bureau of Labor Statistics thought the Phoenix Open was this week. And they just got really drunk and just threw a big party for themselves. I don't know. It's a hard number to explain, but hey, it is what it is, right? A quick look in at the market. The Dow's down. Not a lot, but down 30. The S&P and the NASDAQ are higher, but they should have been much higher than what they are. Like I said, the 10-year note, man. Everyone that bought treasuries yesterday, how mad are they today? Especially the last couple of days, right? All that flight to safety because of the banking problem, right? And now all of a sudden, the yields just skyrocketing higher. Crude oil, I don't know how this works either. Crude oil's down $1.50. I guess there was some talk yesterday of maybe a pause in the war over there. That seems to, I don't know, there's bombs blowing up in Israel now, bombing in Syria. Everybody's waiting. The Biden administration talking, they're going to retaliate. Yesterday they decided, hey, we're not going to strike inside of Iran. Instead, we're going to strike in Iraq, in Syria, Iranian targets. And it kind of, I'll just say what it is. So you're going to tell them ahead of time. So what do you think's happening right now? You think that all of the people that were going to bomb, you think that they've kind of left town? Hey, guys, the United States going to launch some missiles. Let everyone get out of the way. I don't know. It's just, again, what can you do when you're sitting there scratching your head about all of this stuff? Gold's down 18, 2035. Silver's down 50 cents. 22.75. The dollar, a big rally, obviously, with the 10-year note rising. And again, we said this from the very beginning. 2024 is going to be a chaotic year. Just look at this week. This week, we had another banking problem kind of peeking its head out again. Right, we have the United States expanding now the war in the Middle East, At the same time, we get the Federal Reserve saying, hey, we're not raising rates anymore. We're going to wait a little bit to start cutting rates, but we're going to start winding down quantitative tightening. And then, Jason, we get this jobs number that blows everything away. And that's just 1 week. It's going to be crazy. That's why I'm telling you, you know what? Have yourself diversified. Obviously, gold and silver are a big part of that. But check out our friends over at YRefi. Up to 10.25% fixed rate of return. It's not correlated to the stock market, not correlated to the Fed. It just said, you know what? If we decide to drop bombs in Iran, instead of oil being down $1, it'd be oil's up like 10. 20, 30, 40, right? Who knows how high? But here's the great part. Whether it happens or it doesn't happen doesn't matter. It's fixed rate. You get the same every single month. You know exactly what you're going to get, up to 10.25%. You turn your income on. You can turn it off. There's no fees. If you needed your money back early, you know how these places like with annuities and all, they charge all these penalties. No penalties. You get all your principal back. You get to keep even some of the interest. These guys, they're just great guys to deal with. YRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Or just call them at 888-YRefi24. So, Jason, I think everybody better buckle up. These are the weeks we're going to see, and I think we're going to see a lot of these weeks in 2024.
And as you had mentioned on the first segment, the wages going up is good for people that need more money, but it's not good for inflation. So this might be the singular thing that Jerome Powell looked at and then came in this week and said, yeah, no rate cut March. I mean,
could be, right? This could be something where they already knew ahead of time that this number was the inflation part of the number was going to come in red hot. And again, the household survey said that full-time jobs declined by 31,000. Full-time jobs declined 63,000. Part-time jobs surged 96,000, but yet the government says 353,000. But again, listen, it's 2014 and chaos, I think, go together, Jason. So there you have it. We kind of broke down the jobs, but Jason, we got a clip for everybody here that hopefully they'll enjoy. Maybe more fun for you than anybody. I got something fun. I always forget this once in a while when it comes to February, but it's Groundhog Days, bud. Yeah.
So listen to 2 minutes of this. This is something from the past. Listen to this.
The Colorado market. Listen, we're looking to get a bigger presence there. Since back in the days when they used to have the picnics and all of that, and we could go up there and see a lot of you all at once. We're trying to establish a bigger presence in Colorado, make things easier for all of you out there. And I'll just give you some details here. Looking for a minimum of 25,000, no more than 50, somewhere between 25 and 50,000. And because if it doesn't work out, and you know what, it's just not the fit that we were hoping for. We'll just give it back to you. I don't want it to be too big where we can't do that. So that's why we're looking for. It's a small amount, relatively speaking. We've been here 22 years, thousands of customers. But for Colorado, I'm looking for people that are in that Front Range area. This would be, part-time. Radio would be nice. Everybody that's going to be, if you want to be involved, we'll try the radio. Obviously, throughout the years, we've tried a lot of people. It's not as easy as it looks. But there's other things. So even if the radio isn't necessarily your strength, there's a lot of things that we need that we're not doing. And you start thinking about some of these big shows like Alex Jones or Rush Limbaugh. It takes a bunch of people, and we're trying to get there. So if you're interested in becoming a small equity partner in this business, and listen, everything's here We're going to get contracts ready to go. It's all going to be documented, so everybody up front, this is what I'm looking for. 25, no more than 50,000.
Wow. That's pretty much it. There was a little bit before that talking about outside of Colorado, Arizona, and but that was 6 years ago today.
Wow. Man, I want to adjust that price, that's for sure. It is so funny, though. We were thinking of part-time, right? I mean, that was
Joe
what we thought, right?
Joe was looking for someone to join the Arizona team and run the Colorado office. He was, Glenn Biddle came on board and Brian Roberts, and Joe had to pick from, I think you said 20 or 25 people that eventually called in. But the funny thing is that's 6 years ago, which means now you've known me for more than 10% of your life. That's how much 6 years actually makes a difference. 6 years when you're older doesn't seem like a lot, but now Joe's hearing, well, I've known Jason for more than 10% of your life. It's kind of interesting to think about, huh?
Crazy. I didn't even, Jason said he didn't tell me what it was. He had this clip, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And it's Friday and Groundhog's Day, and I'm like, oh gosh, what's he gonna do, right? Is my sphincter gonna clinch up here? Because Jason likes to push the envelope.
You know what's funny? That Groundhog's Day was on a Friday also, so that was kind of coincidental. So that was also a Friday. I guess you had actually talked about it once or twice earlier in the week. That I guess this was just for some reason the first time I had heard it, and I had people calling me saying that Joe is describing you. You probably should call him. It wasn't just me. I was already considering when I heard it, but I had, old Bob, the electrician, Joe. He was the first one to call me.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think he's talking about you, Jace. I was like, yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. I probably should call him up. Here we are,
Crazy.
6 years later.
Wow, here we are. What incredible what's happened in that time. I mean, God, what was gold even then? Do you remember?
$1,200. Yeah, you were selling $20 gold pieces for about $1,200 to $1,300 all through before 2018, all the way through 2019. These $20 gold pieces were always about $1,200, $1,250, $1,300, is bouncing around there. And finally, after the repo market fell apart and they started lowering their interest rates in 2019, and then the Hong Kong flu started, and then suddenly gold shot off. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So there you go. Wow, that's I wasn't expecting that trip down memory lane. It's crazy how different things turned out, isn't it? Just
decisions.
Really,
people make decisions, and
right?
Life changes. That's how it works.
That's it. 800-951-0592. Obviously, the news of the day was the government's jobs report. The unemployment rate stayed the same at 3.7. Right, with that many jobs, you think it would go down. Actually, it was going to go up until they said that less people were actually in the labor force. So a lot there, but hey, it is what it is. I mean, Jason, it seems like month after month after month after month, no matter how many layoffs get announced, no matter what the private sector survey says, the government says the economy is booming, which really flies in the face of what the central bank has been saying as far as those go. But it is interesting if all of a sudden what happened, we really haven't talked about what happens if the inflation rate starts going back the other way again a lot sooner. We anticipated that when the Fed started lowering the rates, that inflation would rebound. Heck, Jason, what if it rebounds without the rates going lower?
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wait and see, right? The markets can go in many places, but there's going to be a crash of some sort. It could be in spring, or there could be a dragging on effect. And I think the rate cuts are being timed for a specific part of this year, I think, Joe. And I think March would be too early.
I think they know when the banks are are going to hit the point, right? I think they know this, and I think that's what they're waiting for. Yesterday, we had a huge rally on Wall Street because the banking crisis kind of expanded yesterday. And they were happy about that because they said that means the Fed's got to cut rates, right? They've got to do it. And then this number kind of flies in the face of that. We did get the numbers out of the bank bailout facility. We did see a drop. It wasn't big, a couple $2 billion, but at least it was a drop. I think a lot of people were expecting a lot more, and I was expecting a lot more until what happened with the bank in New York Bank Corp, and then the Japanese bank yesterday. That number wasn't down as much as people were hoping, and then the Fed discount window, that saw more activity. So kind of a trade-off that went from one window to a different window. But nonetheless, it really does set up, and I'm sure Janet Yellen's probably not happy today. All of us, higher interest rates we're going to be paying to sell all of this debt. That's another one of these things. One of the things you can think about is the debt. With a lower rate, we actually could spend more money without blowing up the debt. We're going to talk about that when we return. $800-951-0592. Jason played that Groundhog Day clip. I can't get it out of my mind. What was so funny was I was going to leave Colorado at that time, right? Yep. The radio station was just having all kinds of problems and issues, and
you didn't know how bad either. You knew it was struggling.
Oh, I did. No idea. Right? Yeah. Well, I wasn't up there, and now I own the radio station. Right? I mean, it's crazy how this whole thing turned around, and Jason working part time, that lasted 5 seconds. Yeah, right. Jason calls me up and is like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but
just for the average person listening, I mean, it was supposed to be part time, and then I was essentially, I wouldn't call it a spy, but I had to observe what was going on, and then I was instructed to help the radio station, and I found out that it needed more than just help. It needed full time work, and so I came back to Joe. I was like, look, 6 days after I heard that Groundhog's Day, and I called Joe on Friday. I think I was a good candidate, and I think Joe called me on Monday. And my wife and I talked. We're like, yeah, let's do this. To get the money, let's sell the house to get the money. And Joe accepted me as one of the guys he wanted. 6 days after Groundhog's Day, essentially, I lost 90% of my full-time gig. I was a process server, and the company that was given the outfit, the papers that I was serving, which was 90% of my work, they just gave the papers to some other company. So I was down to 10%. I still did process serving during 2018 to beef up my money, but I came back to Joe when I saw that I was going to be. I had the potential to just spend more time there and work a lot. And Joe knew that I was working. After a couple of months, he saw that I was going to work, and I was like, "Let me buy further in and get a full-time revenue coming in, so that you can pay me to do this, and we can get this done right." And then the pressure to have to do better radio was on at that point, because the first few months of radio was rough. Right. Yeah, the first few months of radio was rough.
Right? Yeah. So, here we are 6 years later and not looking back. It's interesting. And I know today's number kind of just, I don't know what Jay Powell's thinking or the Treasury, but the biggest thing we talked about, gosh, there's so much stuff. The Treasury refinance, right? We forgot about that, right? Just adding, hey, we got to sell another $120 billion more in debt, and all the issues that we have that have been appearing. How about today? I don't know if people saw it today. Probably not gonna. Did you see what Iraq said today? Anyone see it? No. Yeah, Iraq's like, yeah. I think we're done taking dollars for oil. We want to start taking the Chinese renminbi. So there you go. Once again, nation building never seems to work out for us, does it? But the one thing that lower rates would do is, this year right now we're going to spend $1 trillion in interest on all of this debt. But if the Fed could, lower rates, right now we're at a little over 5. Let's say the Fed went down to 2. Okay, so I'm not even talking about it going all the way back to 0, just down to 2. We could tack on another $400 billion in debt, but spend $300 billion less in interest, right? So we could actually spend more money, right, but yet pay the same, right? Instead of, obviously, right, at the government, as we know, we're going to probably somewhere around $2.5 trillion is going to be the budget deficit for 2024. I mean, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? And that's assuming, nothing goes horribly wrong, nothing goes horribly right? We just kind of do what we've been doing.
The spending will bring that up more, Joe. Spending will bring that up more.
And so there is a trade-off, at least for a little bit, right? You could spend more money. We could actually go further into debt, if you will, but actually not reflect it, right? It could stay the same. In other words, hey, if we go down to 2% in 2025, and the government starts spending even more money, hey, the deficit's now going to be $3 trillion, but wait, interest rates fell, hey, it's still going to be around 2.5, maybe it's 2.6, right? It can make it look better than what it is. So I guess we could maybe borrow some more time, but not if they're going to sit there and say wages are growing 5% every, month over month, year over year. That's not going to work.
Especially depending on which wages are going up. If military wages are going up because they're preparing for something bigger, that's going to be inflative because the military is going to be needing more money to wage war. So they lower the rates, Joe, and they up the wages of government workers, especially because they got this emergency. It could be a disaster. I mean, I heard Janet. There's two things I heard of official government people talking about this week. Janet Yellen was being asked questions as a Federal Reserve. She wasn't. It wasn't a Treasury thing. She's like, "Well, don't you think you can get the prices back down?" And she's like, "Well, I'm paraphrasing. It's kind of the opposite of what we do. Lowering prices is not what we do." Right. We have 2% inflation. That's what we do. She's basically saying your prices aren't going back down. What do you? The people are like, hey, are these things going? The people are asking, they actually think that the prices are going to come back down. The other thing I heard was, that attack in Jordan. I should have got the name of the lady, but one of the cabinet members was taking questions, and they asked her, like, well, so how much was Iran involved in this attack? And then they were involved. Like, how do you know they were involved? Was this financial? Do you have any evidence of this? And they're like, well, we don't have actual evidence that Iran did this. The government, we fell prey to it, Joe. Iran was responsible for the attack on Jordan, but there's no action. I'm pretty sure it sounds logical, but there's no. It's just like 9/11 all over again. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. We got to go get them. The government, when asked right there in Washington specifically, do you have evidence that Iran did this? They said no. So what does that mean? Somebody's gearing up to spend military money. They want to bomb things. You got to know who killed your soldiers before you go spend the money, right, Joe? They want to spend the money. This is where we're at. Inflate our way out of this mess. That's what they want, Joe.
Well, you bring up a great point with Janet Yellen, right? Because her and Ben Bernanke, that 2% thing, that was their idea, right? And they just made it up. There's no economics behind it, but this is they were trying to tell you in a nice way. Hey, fiat money devalues itself. That's how it works, and eventually it goes to zero. But we just want to do it just a little bit. Of course, as we've witnessed over the last several years, right, they really are powerless to control it at all, aren't they? We'll be back right after the break. $800-951-0592. Gold's down $17 here, 2036. I guess here's the good news. Gold prices didn't go up today. Yesterday we were anticipating much higher prices. Unfortunately, the physical gold market saying, yeah, we don't care, whatever. We're not buying it. So gold really didn't move. Silver, on the other hand, U.S. Silver Eagles, rolls of U.S. Silver Eagles, $595 today. So on sale at $595 on a roll of Silver Eagles. If you want a case of Silver Eagles, $14,750. So you're going to be able to save the 50 cents there on the silver side of things. We got silver dimes, $97.50. Rolls of quarters at $195, so below $200 a roll on silver quarters. So take advantage of that at 800-951-0592. On the gold side, $10 Liberties are still the best buy at $1,110. If you want to buy 20 or more, $1,100 on the $10 gold pieces. Again, 800-951-0592. And Jason, I kind of think that's kind of, Janet Yellen talking about, no, we're not talking about prices going back down. That's not what as a matter of fact, Jay Powell's never said that. What do they always say? Well, we're trying to get closer to our target of 2%. And of course, it's a fake 2% to begin with, as we all know. But it will never, right? They don't want to have negative inflation. Back when the currency was backed by gold, inflation really didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. The only time there was inflation was war. Here comes the war, right? Things like, steel and lead and ammunition, right? It would go up. Food prices would go up because, let's face it, a lot of people were farmers and they were the ones fighting in the wars and things of that nature. And then as soon as the war ended, the prices went right back to where they were. I mean, you would have a year or two of negative inflation, right? The prices would actually be down. And this is what deflation, right? This is what the central bankers hated. Oh, they hated it so much. Why did they take the gold from the citizenry in 1933? Because, now here's the funny part. They caused the problem, okay? They caused the problem and convinced us that it was gold's fault that the problem happened. No, it was the bankers' fault, and it always has been. Bankers behaving badly. And they wanted to say, and here's what simply put, they're like, well, to get out of this, let's just spend a bunch of money that we don't have. We'll make it up out of thin air. See, when it was backed by gold, you couldn't do that. Someone had to go under, in the ground, dig it out, right? Fabricate it, melt it down, and turn it into a $20 gold piece, or a $10 gold piece, or a $5 gold piece. Right? The government could only spend or create money based on how much gold was there. And there was no such thing as inflation. And that's what the central bankers wanted. And once they were able, taking it away from us was one thing. It's when they took it away from all the other governments in 1971, that's when all the chaos began. And we had, ups and downs, and you could say, did we get 50 good years out of it? I don't know. Ask your kids that are still living at your house, and I say kids, that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, still living in your house. Ask the 40, 50, 60-year-olds still paying off student loan debt if things are better. Ask the shrinking middle class, right? You know, for about 30 years, it was pretty good, Jason. Let's not lie, right? From 1971 to the dot-com blowing up, it was probably, you know, you could say it was pretty good.
Except for the 70s and 80s early on. Yeah, they got their way out of it, yes. But yeah, the inflation wasn't too kind, was it?
It wasn't, but they spent their way out of it, right? They figured it out and were able to really get it going. But now the reality, we're getting ready to have to live in reality. And I think that's the hard part. A lot of people are having a hard time accepting. They want to still believe that we can go another 50 years this way. That's not happening. Jamie Dimon, I think, was being kind when he said this week. Right? Remember when he said this? We're looking for, you know, maybe about 10 years, and then that's it. Right? Because he knows how to do math, just like I know how to do math. Because it's not complicated math. Get rid of all the zeros. The bottom line is the deficit is going to be 60, 70, 80 trillion dollars in the next 10 years. And Jason, we're having a hard time doing it when the deficit's at $34 trillion. And we're talking about how bad do you think it will be when it's double that? How expensive are things going to be, right? I know an Egg McMuffin in Connecticut, where all the billionaires live, is like $8. Right? Well, what happens when the Egg McMuffin is $10 in Phoenix? When it's $10 in Denver, right? I mean, because that's what's going to happen. Patriot Radio News Hour. Final segment coming up. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason, final segment on this Friday. What a week. Get ready. I think a lot of these weeks are going to be like this one. Right now, quick last look in. Gold's down 16, 2037. Silver off about 43 cents right now, 22.77. And U.S. Silver Eagles, $590 for the roll. I'm sorry, $595 for the roll. If you buy a case, which is 25 rolls or 500 ounces, then it takes that cost down to $590 at $14,750. On the gold side, $10 Liberties, 1 through 19 at $1,110. If you buy 20 or more, $1,100 at 800-951-0592. And Jason, you know, it really is something where when we look at what the issues are dollar-wise, it's plain to see. We know change is coming. It's going to be some kind of digital. I think everyone kind of understands that. You know, news out of Iraq today saying, hey, you know what? We want to stop taking dollars for oil already, right? That Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, right now. I guess we can pretty much now say OPEC in general no longer wants to take dollars for oil, and it just magnifies the situation, the Treasury refinancing announcement, and then today, let's face it, it's a great number, right? This should be celebrated, but unfortunately, it really does say that they really have a hard time controlling inflation. They want to tell us that they can control inflation, but Jason, they really can't because they won't stop printing the money. So no matter what you do, if you don't stop printing money, you're not going to control inflation.
That's correct. Inflation, by definition, is just how much money supply there is. I mean, they try to confuse it, make it sound like this really, convoluted and real just complicated situation. It's just money. You have more money, the less things are worth if it has no backing to it. If you have something backing to it, then you can hinge it. You can grow the money responsibly, but otherwise, more money, everything costs more. It's supply. It is the absolute of supply and demand. Too much money, inflation. Your money is worth less, and those that understand this principle can do well with it, Joe. They can enrich themselves on your back, especially when debt is entered into this equation.
Why do you always hear the really rich guys? Well, I don't do it with my money. Right? I do it with other people's money, right? Robert Kiyosaki, he was out talking about, hey, if I go bankrupt, it's not a problem for me. It's going to be the bank's problem, right? Because I'm not using my money, right? I borrow as much money as they let me borrow, and if it doesn't work out, it's going to be their problem. That's kind of exactly what it is. And the issue really just is, as Jason said, all of the borrowing, all of the money being created, we've kind of finally started hitting that resistance where too much supply, not enough demand, which causes prices to start rising, which means, hey, I want more dollars for the same stuff because, well, there's too many of them. 800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back with the Half Empty Cup.